Good morning. How many of you have ever watched a David Letterman show? Well, I have a top 10 list. Top 10 things only women understand. Number 10, why it's good to have 5 pairs of black shoes. Number 9, the difference between cream, ivory, and off-white. Number 8, how crying can feel so good. Number 7, fat clothes. Number 6, a salad, a diet drink, and a hot fudge sundae make a balanced meal. Discovering a designer dress on the clearance rack is a peak life experience. Number 4, the inaccuracy of every bathroom scale ever made. Number 3, a good man is hard to find, but a good hairdresser is damn next to impossible. We have a few in our congregation. Number 2, why a phone call between 2 women never lasts under 10 minutes. And number 1, other women. We are reading the book E-Squared by Pam Grout. Pam Grout actually goes to the Unity Church in Lawrence, Kansas, which is where the University of Kansas is located, about a half hour west of Kansas City. The book is available in our book and gift shop, as well as, of course, online. And if you weren't here for the previous lessons, it's no problem. Each one I designed to be self-encapsulated. But you can, of course, see the previous lessons on the website under our audio and video files, file folder, or, of course, you can request a CD in the bookstore as well. Now, E-Squared invites you to prove the following principles. There is an invisible energy force or field of infinite possibilities. Number 2, you impact the field and draw from it according to your beliefs and expectations. Number 3, your connection to the field provides accurate and unlimited guidance. And number 4, the universe is limitless, abundant, and strangely accommodating. So this week we're on number 7. There are 9 experiments or chapters in the book. The Jenny Craig principle. Of course, Jenny Craig, the famous weight loss outfit. The Jenny Craig principle is that our thoughts and our consciousness provide the scaffolding for our body. So our physical body can change with us applying our thoughts, our feelings, and our words to it. We can actually release unwanted pounds without changing any other aspect of what we do. Now, I recognize how much this expands on last week's lesson of the power of our thoughts, our emotions, and words on affecting other material things or even other people outside of us. So this week it's kind of like, okay, what do we do with ourselves? Now, Pam Grout writes in this chapter about a well-known yoga teacher, Alan Finger, who decided to put this principle to the test, and he lost 100 pounds in 1 month. What? I know. You think, but that's impossible. How can anyone lose 100 pounds in a month? It can't be done. It's unhealthy. And Pam Grout writes, so let me stop you right there. It's thoughts like that, thoughts that scoff at an infinite possibility, that are getting in your way. To change your energy, you have to change your thinking. The word impossible should not be a part of your vocabulary. Remember, the premise of this book is that we are in a field of unlimited possibilities. And so Pam writes on page 120, the energy provided by your food is affected by what you say, think, and feel. The items on your plate are not static lumps of nutrition, but rather morsels of dynamic energy that eavesdrops on every one of your intentions. Now, in this particular chapter, she gives some examples of experiments they've done with the energy of food, actually measuring the energy of food and then having someone actually pray on it, send love, peace, and joy into it, and it changes the energy of the food. She specifically talks about the yogurt experience that was in the movie I Am by Tom Shadyac, which we showed here a couple of years ago. And reading this book, this chapter really reminded me, because I've heard this over the years, of how it's so easy. I mean, you think of how our society, and especially our advertising media, just continues to hammer us with all of these diet messages, especially, when the new year came, with the New Year's resolutions and all. And I too have read the research on high fructose corn syrup and sugar, and GMO grains, that sort of thing. But when it really comes down to it, it is what we think, what we feel, and what we speak to our food. If we feel that food is going to be fattening, it will be fattening. If we feel that this food is going to work in harmony with our body and that we indeed have the metabolism, that's so easy for you to say, metabolism to burn it off, we can burn it off. And here again, if you're scoffing at that idea, I remember hearing a recording of Marianne Williamson back years ago, and she talked about how she was wrestling with, diet and weights and wanting to lose 10 pounds. And in one of her meditations, it came to her, eat anything you want. And what she did was, she ate anything she wanted, she gained a little bit of weight. But then in a subsequent meditation, it was pointed out just what we're talking about here. Well, if you believe that it's going to fatten you, it will. But also, it allowed her, like she said, she was able to free herself from the diet for a week or two until she could finally grasp, okay, I'm going to start thinking differently. So the experiment this week is to, every time you're ready to eat, go back to, what we learned in, at least what I learned in my Catholic school in kindergarten. You say your grace before the meal. But rather than, just thanking God and being grateful, sending love, peace, and joy to your food, just seeing the molecules of the food transformed. Now, she also talks about, though, how we can go much beyond that. Now, last week I talked about Myrtle Fillmore's healing story, and how she used thoughts, feelings, and words, to heal herself of tuberculosis. I know we put a link on the page, the audio and video page for last week's lesson. And what we need to do is to, here again, let go of what we think is a hopeless cause. For her, it was tuberculosis in the 1880s. There was no medical cure. But I want to share with you today, first of all, what Jesus had to say about this. Now, in the Gospel of John, 11th chapter, 32nd verse. Then Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, fell at his feet and said to him, Lord, if you had been here, my brother Lazarus would not have died. Jesus wept. And then jumping forward to verse 38. Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave. A stone covered the opening. Jesus said, "Take away the stone." Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, "Lord, by this time there will be an odor. He's been dead for 4 days." Jesus said to her, "Do I not tell you that if you would believe, you would see the glory of God?" So they took away the stone. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, "Father, I thank thee that thou hast heard me. I know that you always hear me. But I have said this on the account of the people standing by, that they may believe." And when he said this, he cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out!" And Lazarus did come out, his hands and feet bound with bandages, his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, loose him, and let him go." Now, of course, in Unity, we, of course, have our Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, which was compiled after 10 years of research on what all of these names in the Bible mean. And we start to see the wonderful symbolism in any narrative story in the Bible. The name Lazarus actually means one who appears beyond hope, but God helps anyway. One who appears beyond hope, but God helps anyway. 4 days now, as we've talked about before, 440, you see this number pop up in the Bible all the time. 4 is as long as it takes for something to be completed in the physical world. And the 4, of course, the 4 corners of a good foundation for a new building. And then, of course, Jesus says, "Unbind him and let him go." There's that old belief system. It's, oh, I couldn't possibly heal myself of this condition. Oh, I couldn't possibly drop 10 pounds without going on a diet and getting into vigorous exercise. Now, I'm not saying that diet and exercise are wrong. By all means, eat healthily. We're going to have the mindful eating seminar next Sunday. And by all means, exercise. But I know for me, I'll have my diet, I'll have an exercise, and then I'll have that evening craving where a box of Oreos at the grocery store is yelling so loud I have to listen to it and go get it. One of those kinds of things. They just jump off the shelf into my mouth. It's like, how'd that happen? So, the Christ consciousness comes to a place where it just seems hopeless and says, come out of that mess. Step out of that ridiculous state of mind. Untie yourself, loose yourself, and let it go. Why have you bound yourself down like this? Now, as I was beginning to mention, last week I talked about Myrtle Fillmore. I want to share with you a more contemporary story, Evie McDonald. In 1980, Evie was diagnosed with ALS, which is more commonly known as Lou Gehrig's disease. In Evie's words, she was a bowl of Jell-O in a wheelchair. Doctors came into her hospital room, gave her the news, well, you got maybe 6 months. Sound familiar? I mean, it was the same thing Myrtle Fillmore was told back in the 1880s about her tuberculosis. Now, Evie not only had started to go to Unity Church, but she also had a master's degree in nursing. So she understood the diagnosis and knew that this was considered a fatal illness. So she went home and felt sorry for herself, raged about the situation for a few days. And then Evie thought, even though I'm dying, even though my body is barely working anymore, and even though I only have 6 months left to live, was there something I could do to make the most out of these last 6 months? She came up with a plan, a 3-point plan. She sat naked in a wheelchair in front of her full-length mirror, looked at herself. She'd been overweight for many years. She sat there and experienced all the negative thoughts and feelings she was having about her body and her life. She wrote them all down and came up with a very long list. Then she put her 3-point plan into work. First, she started a new list of the things that she liked about herself. This list of good qualities didn't seem to be coming as easily as the other one. But she began with her hair and her hands. People had always talked about how beautiful her hair and her hands were, so she started with that. She continued every day sitting in front of the mirror naked 3 times a day to add to this new list. It was hard. She brought in her kitchen timer for 20 minutes, deciding that she would sit there for 20 minutes because it's so easy to rationalize that you're done and leaving, right? So for 20 minutes, and here again, the link to Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Charles Fillmore, taking 20 minutes every evening to just sit in forgiveness and gratitude, making sure that he had forgiven everybody he needed to forgive. The negative thoughts and feelings were intense and overwhelming at times. She would find at least one new thing to like about her body or her life each day she could add to her list. The second thing she did was to accept the negative feelings as her own. She took responsibility for her feelings. She owned them. And then she would pray, God, these are my feelings and thoughts. I accept them as mine. But I don't know what to do with them. Take them from me. God, take these negative thoughts away from me. So every day she would accept her feelings as her own and then release them into the ethers to God. And then the third thing, she forgave anyone and everything. Just like Charles Fillmore. Every day, just anyone that would surface in her mind that she needed to forgive. And then just doing a general forgiveness prayer, putting that energy out. And over time, Evie's list of positive qualities grew longer. Eventually, she had as many items on that list as she did on her negative list. It kept growing. Then one day, she wheeled herself in front of the mirror, and for the first time, she realized something. No negative thoughts. No negative feelings. They simply weren't there anymore. All she could feel that day was love and compassion. Not only for her body, which she now saw as a miracle of creation and a vehicle that could still serve her, but also for the person, the spiritual essence that she was inside. At some point, she began to have more strength in her limbs. Pretty soon, she could walk. She could feed herself. She could put on her own clothes. Eventually, she was able to do everything she could before she started feeling the symptoms of ALS. Evie became the first person recorded who recovered from ALS completely. And when that happened, she realized that she must have more work to do in the world. So she studied, and in 1994, working with her colleagues, published a study exploring how mental outlook affects ALS outcomes. The research team found that even when controlling for variables such as length of illness, age, severity of symptoms, people with ALS who demonstrated psychological well-being had a longer survival time than those in psychological distress. McDonald said she figured out how to release self-loathing and to love herself and know that she was just as good as everyone else. She wrote, "I went from get to give, demanding from life to giving to life, from resentment to forgiveness, from self-hatred to self-acceptance. Unconditional love," she felt. She went from wanting to escape from life to accepting life exactly as it was. She went from expecting and preparing for death to celebrating life and living every moment to the fullest. She went from denying painful emotions to sharing them and then letting them go. She went from avoiding intimacy to opening herself to love. She writes, "The essence of my approach was to change the way I viewed myself in the world. My process was not a program for a cure or remission. It was a program for me to let go of my pretenses and my past hurts and resentments, to accept loss of function and upcoming death, and to embrace whatever amount of life I still had left in me. And the changes I went through were real. They worked not because someone else wanted it for me, but because I saw the need and had the desire to alter my attitudes and beliefs, to let go of being right, and to choose a new way of operating life principles. These were more than just an attitudinal change. They represented a fundamental restructuring of my entire framework for perceiving, interpreting, and interacting with the world around me. More than insights, they were key reversals in my process of thinking and feeling, based on a penetrating examination of the foundations of my being." So as I mentioned before, this week is experiment number 7, the Jenny Craig principle. What Pam points out is, okay, it may be hard for you to go from here to here, like say if you had ALS like Evie, to go to that total healing. But what about, for 3 days, experimenting with blessing your food and seeing if you drop a few pounds? So she says, number 1, refrain from talking smack about your body. No more cursing your body, or say, in other words, just like Myrtle Fillmore, send love. Recognize you need to forgive yourself for cursing aspects of your body. In fact, it's a good idea to refrain from any negativity altogether, she says. Number 2, before you put anything into your body, send it loving thoughts. Put your hands over it and bless it. Confer prosperity upon it. Number 3, concentrate on infusing your food with love, joy, and peace. Love, joy, and peace. Love, joy, and peace. Number 4, pick a time for when you're starting the experiment. Weigh yourself. And then 3 days later, weigh yourself and see what has happened. Sound simple enough? Our closing story is a 3-minute video from Steve Hartman of the CBS Evening News about some high school students who recognize the importance of using the power of their words, especially when it comes to praise.
Teamwork on three. 1, 2, 3.
Teamwork.
If you're a fan of high school basketball, you're not alone.
Good boy!
But if you're a fan of the Gainesville Tornadoes in Gainesville, Texas, then you are alone.
Usually, our fan base was close to zero.
My parents came one game, but they didn't come to the other ones because they didn't have time.
The other students at Gainesville don't come to the games either, mostly because they can't get out. This is a juvenile correction facility for felony offenders, and one of the few perks here, for very good behavior, is a chance to leave the prison a few times a year to play basketball. They play against private schools like Vanguard College Prep in Waco, and it was before that recent matchup that 2 Vanguard players announced they weren't going to play against a team with no fans.
No one likes playing in an empty gym.
But isn't that supposed to be a good thing for you? You don't have the other fans cheering against you?
I guess, but it just seems weird, you know? It just didn't seem right.
So, before their home game against Gainesville, Hudson Bradley and Ben Martinson asked some of the Vanguard fans for a favor. To cheer for Gainesville instead. The Gainesville players had no idea what was happening. They walked onto the court to find their own signs of support, their own cheerleaders, even their own fan section. Half the crowd was assigned to cheer for Gainesville.
But then as it went on, everybody just kind of got so into it.
Nobody was cheering for you?
Everyone was cheering for them. I mean, every time they scored, the gym was just lit up with cheering and clapping, and everyone was on their feet.
This is not what I've ever seen sports be.
I think in a way, this is kind of how sports should be. It just kind of showed me the real impact that encouragement and support for anybody can make.
Hudson says we all need someone to believe in us. We all need someone who knows our mistakes and loves us anyway. And for that, the Gainesville players can't thank those boys enough.
It's something I won't forget.
When I'm old man, I'm thinking about this.
Probably remember that for the rest of my life.
And finally, as for who won the game, well, obviously they didn't care. So why should we? Steve Hartman, on the road, in Waco, Texas.
Gospel of John, 11th chapter, 43rd verse. Jesus cried out with a loud voice, "Lazarus, come out." And Lazarus came out, his hands and feet bound with bandages and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, "Unbind him, let him go." And may you always be open to God's guidance and grace. It is now time for our tithes and offerings. So, take what it is you're going to give. Just hold it in your hand, and let's do the Jenny Craig principle on our financial supply. If you use the donation tab on our goodidiovindy.com website, just hold the amount that you're giving in your heart and in your mind. And then bless it. Confer prosperity upon it. Send joy, love, and peace to your financial supply. Feel total peace of mind, knowing that whatever you give comes back to you multiplied. More than 100-fold if you give it under condition. Then let's say the affirmation on the screen together. Divine love through me blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I give, all that I receive, and I am grateful.
This is a more recent song. I don't know what to say about the CD. I'm not a salesperson, but I hope that it reaches and blesses the people that it's supposed to. This song I wrote when we had a guest speaker one time. His name was Larry Watson, And I was scheduled for special music, and I had no idea what to do. And I heard he was going to speak on change. And so I had nothing to present on change, and I like to try to align a little bit with what's going on. So we've all experienced changes that we might find a little bit difficult to adjust to. And, well, the song kind of speaks for itself. There are changes that come along. But if we look at it as a growth, it makes things much different. And this is also one of my first jazz songs. So here we go. Thank you. Shaking the ground like a freight train, threatening my footing once again, breaking my heart wide open, over and over and over, spinning me like a vortex, a funnel cloud of pain. Yet every change is for my good, and now I see more than I ever thought I would. And every change awakens me to new things to see, new work to do, new ways to be. New ways to be me, little piano. Well, sometimes you sneak in the back door, quiet as a whisper, a drip, drip, drip on the rock, and the pleasure moves, but it moves slow, and it's a gradual transformation. It's got no name, and I barely noticed. But one day I look around me, and nothing is the same. Yet every change, yes, it's for my good. Now I know more than I ever thought I would. And every change awakens me to new things to see, new work to do, new ways to be. Oh, to be. As I ride this roller coaster life of change, I cannot deny it. It feels strange, seeing what I've never seen in places where I've never been. My brain overflowing at the brim, getting what I missed before. I'm leaving the familiar shore, and I swim
I do all my own piano work on this, and a lot of people, one other good thing about the church, there's so many, that I have many friends that I have known for a very long time that are sitting in this room that knew me quite a while ago. And then I have some wonderful, precious new friends that I didn't know before that have since joined in here. And it's just a wonderful thing. But people know me as a piano player. I'm not playing right now so that I can put across this song, God willing. Okay, just a little bit more piano.
Listen to your secret heart of hearts, and in the quiet it will whisper of your part, for there's a power that wants your power to stand forth, to shine. So listen, really open up your mind. There will be something great, something wonderful to find in that one power that wants your power to unfold. And this voice is the voice that wants you free. It knows everything that you are meant to do and meant to be. So listen to the silence of your soul, and when you hear it, it is sure to make you whole, for that one power is in the center of your soul. This voice is the voice that's always true. For this voice is the deepest part of you. You know what you must do. Just listen. Just listen to your heart. Just be quiet, for there's a power that wants your power to stand forth and to shine. Then listen again, listen in the velvet of the night, and in the morning you are certain it is right. You'll know your wisdom, your way is clear, it's in plain sight. This voice is a voice that's always true. This voice is the deepest part of you. You know what you must do. Just listen. Listen to your heart. Just be quiet. Hear the power that wants your